Hello. Aloha. My name is Levin. I'm from Los Angeles originally. I followed my family to Hawaii. They moved to Hawaii in 1967, and I was in the Navy then. And when I got out in 1968, I followed them to Hawaii. Oh, my occupation is a photographer, a professional photographer, where I probably made all my living from photography for the last 30 years at least. My hobbies, I don't know. My hobbies are banana growing. I grow bananas and pick them. I can't call swimming or diving or any of that my hobbies because that's my profession. I love listening to music. I like hiking. I do a lot of gardening, and it's more work than hobbies. That's a difficult question. It's a good question because it's changed a lot. So it's like what inspires me now and what inspired me a long time ago. I was inspired by a number of photographers. Some of them are Paul Caponegro, Walker Evans, I really loved, and Henry Cartier-Bresson. And Linda Connor, who is one of my teachers. I love her work. In my more formative years, I was inspired a lot by photography. Now, I'm actually more inspired by either music or recently there's dance. There's one particular dancer who I really love to watch. This exhibition actually goes back to my first underwater photography, or my first introduction to it. In the early 70s, my parents moved to Kona, and I went to visit them and went snorkeling in Honolulu Bay. And I went to, when I went snorkeling, I remember going to this point that's in one of my pictures, which is the south point of Honolulu Bay, and I was watching the waves broke on the reef, and the way they looked when they drained back into the ocean I thought was absolutely beautiful. So I borrowed a friend's camera, a little Nikonis underwater camera, to photograph it, and I got swept over the reef and scratched his lens, so he told me that I bought his cameras. So that was my first underwater camera, but I wasn't able to get to capture what I was seeing back then with film. Recently got a really good housing for my digital camera. I got it for a trip to Mexico, and I was worried about taking film back over the border, so I decided to go digital. And then I was photographing in that same area, but I was, more offshore taking pictures. But then coming back in, I was going along the shoreline and I took some pictures, and those were my favorite pictures from that shooting. And I realized that I was capturing what I had wanted to capture 50 years ago. And so I decided to focus on that work, on focusing on the meeting place between sky and earth and water, which I call the edge. So so that's how this work started. Photographing digitally is really different from photographing with film. I'd always photograph with black and white film. First of all, with digital, you take so many more pictures. Like where I would take one picture with film, I may take 5 with digital. So like the other day, I went to a beach hole, Canada, which was really nice, and I took over 600 pictures in 2 hours. And it's a really different way to approach it. Also, I have a zoom lens, so I can change, how wide the image is. while I'm shooting, which I couldn't do before. And the other thing is I could use very high ISO speeds. So I can shoot where the shutter speed is like a 3 or 4,000th of a second. So it's like really freezing motion, and also have a lot of depth of field where something close and far is all sharp. So that whole combination is what created this work. Again, it's a hard question. Do you mean visual art?
Well, it doesn't matter. It could be music, poetry.
No, because I think to me the greatest artist in the history of art that in my opinion, is Beethoven. And it's not for his symphonies, it's for his late string quartets and his piano sonatas that he was composing after he was dead. And the music is like from another world. It's like unearthly. So he was on another level at that point. To me, I think that was the greatest art that a human's ever done. In visual art, I really like Van Gogh. I love the Impressionist art. I thought about that question, and there's been a lot of museums that I really like that I've gone to, but I think I had the best experience when I went to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and I really like Impressionist art, and they had an incredible collection of they had a lot of Van Gogh, a huge collection of Monets. I was really blown away because I'd been to the Met and the Modern in New York, and I was like more excited and blown away by the art I was seeing at the Philadelphia Museum. They had a Japanese tea house inside the museum that I thought was really cool too. But I really like that. But my favorite museum that I ever had a show at, I had shows at several museums that I really liked, and one was the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C., and then the Das Museum, where I'm showing now, and in Korea, that's a really beautiful space. The Old Contemporary Museum in Honolulu I really loved, but my favorite is I had a show at the Nimbola Museum in the Isle of Wight, off the south tip of England, and there's a very famous Victorian photographer named Julia Margaret Cameron, and the Nimbola Museum was her house. She photographed people like Darwin and Alfred Lord Tennyson, who lived there, and she even photographed the Alice from Alice in Wonderland. There was a real person, Alice Liddell, and she was friends with the author of Alice in Wonderland. They both photographed Alice Liddell. He photographed her as a little girl, and she photographed her as a young woman. But anyway, it was such an honor to have a show at Julia Margaret Cameron's house. For me, I've always thought that art is communication. It's about communication. So it's about communicating an idea, a thought, or a feeling from inside me to somebody else, and whatever form you do it. And the way that they interpret it will obviously be different from exactly what I see, because it's a different person with their own consciousness, their own mind, so they interpret it different, which is fine. But it's to get out, my ideas, my vision, what's important to me, and have somebody get it in their own way. that, and I think that's art in all cases, in music and dance and acting, whatever. Thank you. I appreciate it. If they admire my work, that means that I'm succeeding at some level of communicating to other people and reaching other people. So, I'm really thankful and grateful to that. I'd like to tell Hawaii that I'm sorry for what people have done to it. I'd like to thank Hawaii for what it's given me and for its power and its beauty that it's allowed me to share during my lifetime. Whenever I go into the ocean, I ask permission of Kanaloa, the Hawaiian god of the sea, which I believe is why I'm still alive today. Maybe.